What's happening, everybody? Dom here from Lensprotogo and Lens Rentals. Welcome back to the channel. So this is a very special video that you have tuned in here for today. This is going to be the first installation in a new series of videos I'm calling What's New with the 2. This series is going to be explicitly dedicated to covering the second version of camera bodies, lenses, any pieces of gear. It's just got to be the Mark II. Sure, I will do other what's new and overview videos of other such and such iterations of pieces of gear, but this series, we're not talking about first, third, fourth, fifth, 17th, it doesn't matter, though if something gets a Mark 17, that's worthy of coverage in and of itself. But I thought that this would be neat because the second version of a piece of gear, it's pretty much a guarantee in and of itself that whatever the original piece of gear that thing was, garnished enough like popularity and attention and served its user base well enough for that manufacturer to roll out a second version of that thing. So with that little spiel out of the way, what version 2 thing are we talking about today anyways, after that long-winded intro? Well, that would be the very exciting and long-anticipated Canon EOS R6 Mark II. The original EOS R6 has been an absolute powerhouse, full-frame mirrorless Canon camera, very capable, able to take photo and video pretty darn professionally. And since then, they were released at the same time. It's sort of always been in the shadow of the slightly more capable EOS R5. And over those years, it's given those R6 users a lot of time to think about what they would really like to see in a second version of this camera. And now we're finally here with the EOS R6 Mark II. And side note, I can't wait till I'm back here doing another What's New with the 2 video on the EOS R5. But anyways, first I'm going to point out some things that are new on the outside of the camera body. Honestly, telling you right now, there aren't that many things different on the outside. The real changes they brought to the Mark II are definitely sensor, hardware, internal programming stuff, which is very exciting, but not necessarily the stuff you can see. So let's talk about some of these minor body changes. So just at a first glance, honestly, you might have a hard time telling which camera is which here. They really are that similar looking build-wise. One thing I've noticed between handling both of these cameras is the R6 Mark II's grip is a bit slimmer. I've got to say the original form fits to my hand a bit better. Another good thing to note here is the grip extension for the R6 will be compatible with the R6 Mark II, thank goodness. Screen design is still the same. We still have a flip out articulating screen. The button placement is the same for the most part, other than one pretty striking difference. The R6 Mark II has reworked these top dials here. So now on the left of the viewfinder, instead of the on-off switch, you get a stills and video mode instead of video being built into the mode dial. Now this mode dial is just your straight up mode dial, and now this rear thumb dial on the top here has this 3-stopped switch for off, on, and lock in the middle there. So now the video and photo dial can work in unison with that mode dial, rather than doing the kind of weird gymnastics of switching from still to video using the mode dial on the R6. And also programming wise, this allows aperture and shutter priority movie modes and unlocks custom shooting profiles 1 through 3 in video mode as well. But anyways, that's like workflow stuff. Back to the exterior real quick. Honestly, that's really the only striking like build design choice that went onto the Mark II. Inputs and outputs are the exact same, although we've got the addition of this new smart hot shoe. I haven't really experimented with what this can do, but as I understand, it gives much more enhanced communication to a lot of these newer hot shoe accessories. Flashes, I think, certain Tascam audio recorders. So love that. Again, a big change on this camera that you wouldn't necessarily know by looking at it. Other than that, now just really splitting hairs, but just design-wise, I noticed that the housing around the EVF is a bit more rounded and smoothed over, where the Mark I looks a little bit more bulbous, but also has like these rigid straight lines. And also I did notice that the Mark I has this little infrared window for remote control access on the grip there, where that is not present on the R6 Mark II. They probably just found a way to easily like build that in there. Okay, now moving on to the insides, and the body caps are coming off now. That's how you know stuff is about to get real. So the number one change at the top of the list, a pretty significant resolution jump from 20 to 24.2 megapixels, but there's also a sensor build thing going on here too. So the R6 Mark II ditched the stacked CMOS design. It seems like this is going to benefit the readout situation considerably given its new processor, which I guess is confusingly named the exact same thing as the R6's, but is improved. That sensor processor duo is going to allow for these whopping high burst burst photostats, 12 frames per second mechanical, and 40 frames per second electronic. That is absolutely stellar. I wish I actually flipped it into that full electronic mode when I was shooting some of that MotoGP. Another side note, I was really impressed with the autofocus performance on the R6 Mark II. It's very sticky on subjects. I didn't feel like I had to mess around with any of those tracking or speed or subject settings at all. In the vehicle setting, it picked up motorcycles as vehicles, and I read with each Canon release, Canon is implementing new AI deep learning based strategies to improve the autofocus intelligence, which is pretty cool and scary. Maybe like somewhere in the middle between scary and cool. Scary cool. Anyways, another awesome and very pro feature, that RAW burst mode and pre-shooting in RAW. With the half press of a shutter button, it'll take about a half a second's worth of images, depending on whatever drive mode you're in, before you even fully press down the shutter. Very welcomed changes on the photo side there. Now, we're gonna talk about my favorite thing in the world, video. Starting out with the #1 video thing, pretty sure that increase in sensor size allowed to take uncropped 4K 60p video. And now just hitting the ground running, here's two more big ones in a row. 6K raw video out from the full width of the sensor. Look at that 6K flat horizontal resolution right there. It's still over that micro HDMI port, which is kind of a bummer. What are you gonna do? But at least that new micro HDMI is supporting that newer protocol, supporting all those next gen video stats. Saving my favorite video stat for last, this is honestly awesome. You can now take 180 frames per second video in 1080 in its high frame rate mode. I think 180 is such a neat frame rate. I always think 240 is a little too glacial, but 120 also doesn't give you quite the amount of time to recognize all that little detail and stuff. So I know a lot of this motorcycle stuff in 180 is gonna look awesome. One more video thing I'm honestly pretty thrilled about. I know a lot of other people will be too. No more 30-minute record times like we had on the Mark I. Remember how I said I had minimal complaints? That would be one of them. I think they really listened to R6 users over the years there and ditched that record limit. Other than that, for video stuff, I'm just liking the improved interface. They switched to that translucent sort of see-through Q menu. And then also with C-Log on and a view assist and HDMI recording on, I have like this massive bar of white text on the bottom row there. I suppose it's nice to be able to see all that. So that's video stuff. And now, honestly, I just wanted to jam in a couple more like performance-based notes. I'm not sure if any direct improvements were made to this from version to version, but I've got to say, I was insanely impressed with the whole image stabilization setup. Might be because it was my first time pairing it up with this RF 70-200 f4. Absolutely superb lens. Maybe the stabilization on this thing is just excellent, but I was able to like ride around on a mountain bike and just lazily shoot around, and I looked back at that footage. It was so smooth and stable. It was like it was on a gimbal. Ultra impressed with that. And then just a couple more like workflow, everyday usage type notes. The R6 Mark II has made significant improvements in battery usage and heat management. It hasn't happened a lot, but every so often I'll get the heat warning on my R6 I. I haven't got that icon once shooting on the R6 Mark II, although I haven't put it through as many vigorous trials as I have this original guy here. They do give you a warning when starting up in a couple of 4K modes that this recording mode might overheat. Never happened to me. And just to speak to that battery thing real quick, I've got to say that the Mark II is a lot more friendly on the classic LPE6. I feel a lot more confident with just a single battery here in the R6 Mark II than I was on the I. Last thing I gotta mention, we're not gonna talk about it in this week's video, but the R6 Mark II is also, I think, Canon's only camera that offers this separate licensing that aids stop motion capture. This kind of reminds me of that dual fisheye stereoscopic VR thing with the programming that came along with that. Really neat. But we're not going to get into it today. Our friends over at Lens Rentals have already done an awesome video covering that stop motion licensing, so I'll link that in the description below. And with that, you fine people, that is going to wrap up this first installation in this brand new series, What's New with the Two. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section. If you did, I don't need to hear why. I know. In next week's video, I'm gonna roll out a whole bunch of sample stills, sample video. I'm gonna get the Ninja on there. I'm gonna screen cap some of its autofocus algorithms, see what that burst shooting and raw grouping is all about. Use that Ninja to take some of that 6K Canon RAW video externally. I'm excited to get that going, so be on the lookout for that video. As always, if you had any questions whatsoever about the EOS R6, R6 Mark II, or any of the gear we saw in this video, drop a comment in the comment section below and we'll start a discussion. So people, one can be fun, but it takes two to tango. And we'll see you in the next one.